went deep. Now, from the text line, the 770, Chapin is a better arm, more accurate, but biggest difference is his ability to check down much quicker than Bohannon. Bohannon often tucks, and runs if his primary isn't open. There was somebody else in the chat room today that mentioned they wish that Gary would do less of double clutching when there's the throw to make.
I was going to say, it seems like he holds onto the ball for a really long time, actually, is what my impression is. And I think that's the opposite of what's being said there.
Yeah. You're talking about Chapin.
I thought you said Bohannon.
No,
sorry.
Chapin has better arm strength and more accurate. The biggest difference in his ability is to check down much quicker than Bohannon. Bohannon often tucks and runs if his primary isn't open.
So, no, that's exactly what I was saying. No, he doesn't. I mean, I feel like he holds on to the ball for quite a long time and looks and looks and looks, and then he takes off running. I feel like the argument's been that he doesn't run quickly enough, or am I just making that up in my head?
I agree with you. I think he doesn't, like, there's times last year we'd be in the press box and you're kind of like, go now.
Run.
Go now if you're going to do it. And then a 12-yard run becomes a 3-yard run.
Yes.
Because he waited that split second too long because he's holding the ball. And you can appreciate a patient passer, but there is such a thing as being too patient. I think that's Gary's thing, is he's just too patient. You know what, though?
There's also something, do you want a guy as well? And we don't know what the staff is going to decide. And was Chapin good enough throughout spring, especially near the end and in that game, to perhaps make that even more of a competition in August? But there's something about a quarterback that also will stay in the pocket and keep looking and even take a hit when he's delivering the ball. And there are some that like that. Now, you would think, though, Dave Aranda, as a defensive guy, would want somebody who is much more conservative than somebody who wings it. But, I mean, they won with both of them.
They did, but not because of those guys necessarily. I mean, I went back and looked at every game this year. There are some games you can say, yeah, the quarterback directly contributed. But do you know how they won 99.9% of their games? Defense and running game. That's how they won 99.9% of their games. I went back and was looking over every single game, and you can, even the great performances from the quarterbacks, you can pick those apart and go, wow, that really wasn't as great as I thought it was, quite frankly. Like, name a game last year where a quarterback just went off.
Well, I don't have the stats in front of me, but I'm
think of one.
I'm going to it wasn't Texas. It wasn't Oklahoma. How about Iowa State? How did Gary throw the ball again? I'm going to look up that game against Iowa State.
You like the first half. You won't like the second half.
Okay.
The only game I can think of was West Virginia. That was the only one where Bohannon or any of the quarterbacks, for that matter, just went in there and just dazzled. And then you could say the first half against Oklahoma State. You could say maybe the first half against OU. But, like, as far as, like, went out there and look, I realized. You're talking about
Chapin against Oklahoma
I'm talking about any quarterback.
Okay.
I'm talking about any quarterback. Name a game where they just went off. And you maybe say Bohannon in the West Virginia game and then an entire game, not a half. So Oklahoma's out. Oklahoma State's out. It really is just West Virginia in my mind.
Oklahoma State, maybe the second game also Chapin was hurt. Did that not affect it a little bit?
Yeah, but is the end result?
It's still evidence,
I'm just saying, like, yeah, but it was what it was. It was the first half, and then he was hurt in the second half. So, yeah, maybe that would have been one, but it wasn't because he was hurt in the second half. So, I think there's a lot of room for growth there. That's what I'll say. I'm not as down on the quarterbacks as I probably sound. I'm not, but I do just think that there's a lot of room for growth there, and there's questions. And I don't feel like there's really just a clear-cut guy, quite frankly, of the two of them.
Bohannon had 159 yards, 2 touchdowns against Iowa State. The only points Baylor scored in the second half, Ebner kickoff return, 96 yards and a field goal. So that's a game,
what I mean.
Even though you look at the score and it's 31-29. The good news is both of them can help you win, but are either one of them that much better than the other to just be a clear leader? And that's what the staff has to deal with.
This is what I'm curious about. If they can't run the football, can they win a game?
No.
That's my question.
Well, I know what you're saying, because last year it was about the running game and defense, and that's going to be the style you would think they want to always play with Dave Aranda.
Right. So do you have a guy in Chapin or Bohannon who can go in there and throw you to a win? And Chapin did it in the first half against Oklahoma State. He did that. But outside of that, there's really few and far between examples. West Virginia game, Bohannon had a great game that day, but that was also like week 6 or something like that.
Yeah, there's 6
so,
games.
Yeah, so, I mean, that was pretty early on in the season, and that wasn't a very good West Virginia team. So, hey, there's one example, but beyond that, I mean, if you really go back and look, it's a mixed bag back there. And there's a lot of good, and then there's some bad, and there's just kind of some in between. But that's my whole thing with these quarterbacks is like, we can argue over Shapen or Bohannon or whatever, but do they have a guy, bottom line, that if the chips are down and you don't have Abram Smith to rely on and you don't have a defense that's, keeping you in the game, so to speak, can they go out there and make a blanking play and put together a drive that kickstarts something? Because we just really haven't seen a ton of that. The TCU game last year, they fended, but they needed somebody to just take hold, and they almost did. And then Bohannon throws an interception at the end. So when the strengths are not the strengths on a certain day, can one of your, not weaknesses, but can a quarterback come in there and throw for 300 yards if that's what it requires for you to win the football game? And I don't know that yet because we haven't seen that yet.
Shapen 20 of 34, 254, and 2 scores against Tech. They win at 27-24. Of course, Oklahoma State, he was incredible.
But look at those drives,
in the first
too.
half as well.
Didn't have a lot of great just drives throughout that Texas Tech game.
Yeah, and what's interesting is as bad as it was 2 years ago, last year was a step up. Without question, was a step up.
And then therein lies the rub of, they don't have any experienced wide receivers.
Maybe 3
now,
steps up, yeah.
So now you've got quarterbacks that, like Craig says, you're not necessarily going to expect them to go out and, Brett Favre it up for you when the chips are down and throw for 400 yards one day. They're just not probably what they're going to do. And even if you do need them to, if you're running backs, which I actually think they're pretty darn good at running back, even Squirrel Williams not involved in it, I think they can get by with that even if he does get hurt again. There's no wide receivers that have the experience, so there's not a wide receiver there that's going to help match and elevate the quarterback simultaneously.
Like Tyquan against TCU last year, or other examples of him. Yeah, and I know it sounds like I'm being negative. I'm not. I'm just plainly talking about next year, kind of the expectations.
You don't have to say, but you're being honest. This is your opinion, and from Robert Beekler, spot on, Craig, on your quarterback analysis.
Yeah, I just don't want to make it sound like it's all negative is what I'm saying, coming out and just focus, because I don't want to make it sound like I'm negative on Shapen and Bohannon. I'm just unsure of the situation, and I'm not convinced that there is like a star at the position. I think they've got 2 pretty good players who both have their own faults, and that's fine because every quarterback in the country basically does. But, can those 2 guys, when the chips are down, like I said a second ago, lead this team if they can't run the football with their arms or with their own legs? I think Bohannon's got that a little bit more than Shapen does. And can they score? Like, here's one of my concerns for next year, for example. All right, you got all these spread teams coming in, right? All these air raids, right? Around the league. You got Texas Tech with Zach Kitley in Western Kentucky scoring like 1 billion points a game, although, obviously he had Bailey Zappi and like 15 transfer receivers from where he was from. But they had built something there, and they scored a lot of points. Texas is going to score a lot of points. Oklahoma is going to score a lot of points. Oklahoma State, Spencer Sanders is going to give the other team a lot of points, but he will also probably score a lot of points, and so on and so on. Sonny Dykes at TCU, they're going to try to score a lot of points. Can Baylor score a lot of points? Like, if they get into I know their defense is going to help prevent some of that, but if it's a TCU situation where maybe the cornerbacks and safeties are getting absolutely roasted, do they have a quarterback that can go match score for score with a team that's scoring a lot?
Well, you hope that doesn't have to happen, but it's going to, because it's like a team that has great pitching and defense is going to get into some 10-8 slugfest.
Exactly, and that's my question. That's where I have my biggest question is not if these guys can lead, not if they can throw it or run it. It's can they, in any situation that they're put in, when the time comes, be able to rise up to that occasion. And I think that they probably can. And I'm, probably not giving them enough credit in some regards, but it's something that I don't feel like we've really seen yet. And so I feel like we are going to need to see that at some point.
Do you feel better? We got a break for Ross Tucker. Do you feel better about where they are in the quarterback room today than you did at this time a year ago?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because both have done it. Maybe not week in and week out because that's not the personality of the team, but they have done it.
But do I feel as good about the receivers? No. Do I feel as good about the defense? No. Do I feel, but I feel good about the O-line? Yes. So, I mean, it's a different team.
You can't have the perfect team coming back in April. You can't. But you're right. There are, and I'm not so sure with your running game. We saw Tay McWilliams. We see what he's doing. But, and obviously, Squirrel, all about health. And if that's fine, but Jordan Jenkins didn't pop on me. And I really like what he's going to bring to the table. And then after that,
you weren't there for the first couple carries he got.
I went back and watched.
Yeah, and he had a couple he's got he's got
that East Texas running back.
But again, he's also with the second team line and all that stuff. I think their running backs will actually be fine. I really do. I think that based on the scheme that they run, and that's what the zone scheme does. It's kind of the evergreen running back situation. So as long as they are fit to the zone scheme, one cut, and make your decision, then they'll be fine.
When we come back, Ross Tucker, the Ross Tucker Podcast, NFL Draft, also today just after